Welcome to 2023, everybody, and welcome to a new year of the SGC. I have prepared this PowerPoint presentation rapidly in and around my day job, so I apologize for any hiccups here, but I figure a little visual aid to walk us through a bunch of the different things we're going to talk about tonight would be good to help keep people oriented, and also for posterity since we are recording this. And this will be posted, like all of our general membership meetings, in the next couple of days on the SGC Soaring Foundation YouTube channel for those that want to watch a replay, or for those of you that want to tell other folks to come and watch a replay and catch up on what they missed. With that out of the way, let me just start talking and going through things. First, an outline of tonight. I hope that this is informative and useful for you guys tonight and helps everybody kind of get a little keyed up for the year. But there's a whole bunch of different topics we're going to go through tonight. So to give you a preview of coming attractions or an opportunity to run away now, hopefully you don't, but we're going to talk a little bit about this being a time of renewal, an opportunity to meet your board members, a note about rates and fees. We're going to talk a little bit about the scope and purpose of the SGC itself. We're also going to talk about the purpose and plans of the SGC Soaring Foundation and hear from some of the Soaring Foundation board members. It looks like one of my bullet points is out of order, so we'll come back to that missing spot in the middle. We'll give a quick word about Towplanes and operations. There it is, the schedule and events for 2023. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can help, because of course we are a member-run, volunteer-led organization, and I'm not going to let a meeting go by without reminding everybody of that and thanking you in advance for your help. And then lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about Towline and communications, and make sure that everybody is aware that we have ways of keeping in touch and keeping our communications, our camaraderie going in between times when we're either in these meetings or seeing each other in a FREDA. I know that a great many of you on the call I consider not just club members, but also friends, and I enjoy keeping in touch with all of you, not just when we're in a FREDA those dozen times a year, but throughout the year. And we've got some ways to help us all stay in touch and stay connected, and hopefully I'm not the only one that considers us all friends. So let's talk a little bit about a time of renewal here. We basically stopped like everybody, and the world stood still. Oh, Bob, do you have a question? Did you raise your hand there?
Sorry, no, I was looking for the thumbs up, friend. Sorry.
Okay. All right. In 2020, and in fact, I'm going to turn my camera off just so I'm not, my ugly mug isn't distracting from the slideshow or covering things up. Like the rest of the world, right? We stopped. Time stood still, and everything shut down. In 2021, we did some operations, but we were really kind of just crawling back into things. And last year, thanks to a lot of work by a lot of folks, and I don't think we have the time to go through it tonight, but I do want to give everybody's name, but I want to give a special shout out to the 2022 board and our chairman, Jim Dauberful, for really helping us get back to what I'll call walking again, right? We got back to having some semblance of operations. We had a couple of events, we had tows, and it felt like we were starting to become a working, functioning organization again. And that was really, I think, important. But now we need to get back to running, right? We have, as folks know from previous meetings and communications I put out, we put ourselves in a bit of a financial hole because of everything that's gone on. And as everyone knows, operations have not been the last couple of years as common or as regular out in a FREDA as they have been in previous years. And if we want an ongoing, long-term viable organization, we have to get back to having more participation, more activity, more events, more camaraderie, just more of everything than we've had. And hopefully we can take the positive momentum we started last year and roll it into even more momentum this year. As part of that, I am already talking a lot with the board. We've already had a meeting. We're going to have a meeting again on Wednesday. Hopefully the new board isn't already sick of hearing my voice, but we're committed to being more proactive this year than we have in previous years. What that means is we're going to be thinking ahead and looking ahead. And my commitment to all of you in the membership is that as chairman, I want to be giving people more of a heads up further in advance about our operations, our events, the things that we can do to make the club better. And I think that the more we can do that in advance rather than being reactive, the more healthy and vibrant our organization will be and we'll all feel when we're participating. As part of that, of course, me waving pom-poms doesn't actually make the organization successful. We need pilots to be committed this year too. So I am asking all of you as members to help us be proactive. We've got some new board members. I'm still always learning, even though I've been on the board off and on for several years. So friendly reminders, suggestions, critique, you guys thinking ahead, being proactive and contacting us and saying, hey, such and such usually comes up every year, or this is coming up in 2 months or so if we do this like previous years and I haven't heard anything. What's the deal? I welcome and ask for that interactivity between all of you and those of us on the board. Your commitment to operations, to events, to making sure we're doing what we can do to be involved and active members of the soaring community, not just as individuals, but as a whole organization, is really, really important. So thank you in advance for your commitment this year. And then as part of that, we need to broaden our engagement across the region. We've started to have some talks about this, I know, before, but this is a topic I'm going to push on, and we're going to touch on 2 or 3 times throughout the meeting tonight. The Seattle Glider Council has the word council in its name because it was founded to be a regional organization. And I feel like that has been, I think, a little bit lost over the years. But we have many clubs that have come out and participated at our events, that come and do encampments, or who just have a healthy part of their membership that come out and fly as SGC members. We need to broaden that engagement. We need to help those clubs and their boards, which rotate in and out every year, remember what a shared resource we are and talk about how we can support each other better. The SGC's original mission, in part, was to coordinate soaring activities across the entire Northwestern US. And I think we can step forward and go back to doing some of that. And I think in doing that, that will give us more members, more opportunities, and a healthier long-term organization. And as part of that, I think this year is our best shot at breaking out of some old patterns and, like I said, charting a course to long-term viability. Again, we need to cast a wide net. We need to have a certain level of activity out at AFREDA, and that can go beyond the traditional, oh, we've got a tow plane available on weekends. That can go to different types of encampments, different types of safaris. We've got the Methau event as in some ways a model of how the SGC can sponsor events that don't necessarily happen at AFREDA and or can be either the SGC or the Soaring Foundation, which we'll talk about in a minute, can be a part of a resource for other clubs, whether it's helping them with our back catalog of information, whether it's looking at how maybe some of our group and event insurance can help with other clubs putting on events. Maybe there are tow plane arrangements that we can make to be mutually supporting with other clubs. There are lots of ideas out there. And any of you that have ideas on how we can help broaden those relationships and chart new patterns that help us be a healthy, active organization into the long-term future, please do not hesitate to reach out and let myself or any of the board members know those ideas. Good ideas can come from all quarters here, and we welcome all of them. Sorry, before I go on to that, does anybody have any questions or concerns about anything I've said so far about this year? Awesome. Either I'm being clear or I've already put people to sleep. Either way, that makes my job easier. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce you to your 2023 board. I am the chairman by default. I was the only person who agreed to be the ringleader here. I appreciate that many of you voted for me anyway. Thank you for your vote of confidence. I will endeavor to do you proud. But I am just one voice, and I am
Anybody still there?
Yeah,
I'm still here, but I don't know who. Doesn't look like Wade
one
is.
voice went to no voice.
I think Wade dropped off.
Well,
Somebody
that's-
Yeah, Wayne.
Yeah.
Wayne
somebody
disappeared.
shut Noel off.
He
No,
might
it
have
doesn't
done it
freeze.
himself.
That was not nice.
Noel is focusing on thermaling right now.
Yeah, we lost Noel.
Is it appropriate to say to the Bastille at this point?
The pilot bailed out.
Yeah, we lost Calm.
Oh, there he is.
Looks like he's
Here he
coming
comes.
back. Are you there, Noel?
No, he's frozen again.
Hello, Noel. Come on in.
Must be Comcast.
Or something.
God, maybe somebody better call Noel. He's probably still talking.
I just sent him a text message.
Oh, good. Way to go. My screen is populating with everybody that's there, but Noel's is.
He just said I've rejoined twice, and he can see all of us. So somehow or other, he's not getting completely locked in.
Yeah, his voice must be blocked off.
Well, it is, but everything is at this time, so that's a little strange.
Yeah.
On the list, it shows Noel as being muted.
Yeah, it shows him as being muted.
Definitely.
It also shows him as the organizer. Well,
Hey, Noel, if you can hear this, unmute yourself if it's possible.
he's rebooting his computer. Stand by.
Yeah, there you go. When all else fails, shut it down and start again.
Yeah, unfortunately, having been in the tech support world many times, it's amazing how many times it gets fixed. In the there's an old joke. It says, this is a joke on Intel where I used to work, and it said there was a marketing guy, an engineer, and I can't remember what the third guy was, and it doesn't matter, sales guy or whatever, and they were going to a conference and they had a flat tire, and the hardware guy said, well, we'll just swap around until we figure out which tire is bad. And I know, one was a marketing, and the marketing guy says, well, let's just go get a new car. And the third fellow was a software guy, and he goes, well, just wait a minute, maybe it'll fix itself.
Yeah, some brilliant engineer has a reset.
Yeah.
Well, I figure if anybody can figure it out, Noel is certainly savvy.
Well, he better be. That's his business.
Yes, he's the man.
Maybe in the interest of time, the remaining board members can introduce themselves.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
I think my name is first. This is Mike Bamberg. Some of you know me. Some of you wish you didn't.
Put your face
I'm a
up, Mike, so we can see you.
Okay, I'll show me. Hang on. Here I am. Okay, so I'm a second generation glider pilot. My father was a soaring pilot in the 60s and 70s. So I've been chasing gliders since I was a teenager. A late friend of ours, Mr. Newgard, and I, our fathers were in competitions together. So we knew each other for a long time. At this time, I was recently elected to the board of the council, as well as being. I didn't step back fast enough when they said whoever wants to step forward, and I became a board member of the foundation as well. So at this time, I have a foot in both organizations, and very happy to do a few things for both of them. I've enjoyed going to Ephrata for many years, and looking forward to being able to help and guide the operations and the goals going forward in the future. So whoever was next, Matt, was it you?
It could be Ron Bellamy. I'm in the B category. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little weak, but I can hear you.
Oh, I've always been weak, but I'm getting stronger.
We can't see you, Ron. We want
I
to
can't see you.
We want to see your face.
Yeah, there you go. Now we're coming in.
Okay, click on the camera so we can see your smiling face, Ron.
Well, I thought I did, but maybe it's not coming up. Maybe I didn't. They didn't get my sign in properly. But I've been with SGC since 1969. So it's a pleasure to have another year with all you great guys. I keep learning every year because you're so good. It's a pleasure. Maybe Matt's next.
Sure, I'll go. Good evening, everybody. I'm Matt Coleman. I know some of you, but most not yet, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody. I guess my soaring journey started in 1985, flying rated control gliders with a strapping young man named Mike Bamberg down in the Portland area. Did that for through high school, and took a respite from that to go to college. Majored in commercial aviation and minored in meteorology. Worked as a flight instructor, an instrument flight instructor, a multi-engine flight instructor. Ended up joining the Air Force, flew Learjets and C-17s down at McCord Air Force Base. Flew some cargo 747s. Right now I'm working at Boeing, flying the 737, 777, and 787s. And I serve as the chief pilot of our Part 125 Air Operations Certificate right now. So those keep me pretty busy. The things have kind of come full circle in my glider world, where I always meant to learn to fly the full size gliders, and finally got around to it just as COVID hit. And I was out at Ephrata in I think it was 2019, and we were hanging out. I was sitting on the couch in the training facility there, and I heard a voice that I really recognized, and I looked up, and sure enough, it was Mike Bamberg. So things have definitely come full circle. I'm still pretty new to gliding, so I'm definitely a rookie. I've never flown more than 3 or 4 miles away from whatever airport I took off at. So I'm definitely one of the people that needs to tap your expertise to help me learn the ropes of cross country. So I'm new to SGC and new to soaring, but pretty broad background in lots of other aviation areas. So hopefully I can contribute something, and I look forward to learning the art of soaring from all of you. Any questions?
Cool. Welcome.
Thanks.
Hey, Matt, this is Noel, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
What's max L over D on a C-17?
It's not very good. Probably the equivalent of a manhole cover.
Yeah, at a high speed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
So no, we just went down the list. I started, then Ron Bellamy, and then Matt. So whoever's next on the list, you need to give them a heads up.
Mr. Dauberful, would you mind, I know you, no stranger, but would you mind reintroducing yourself to the members and talk about maybe some goals for 2023 you got?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you so much for letting me represent you last year. As chairperson, I was most fortunate to have an excellent board and really good support, not just from our board members, but also from our non-board members, Jim Simmons and Jim McNeil and Rita Idris. There's a tremendous amount of time and effort that goes on behind the scenes to actually get all of these resources lined up in the infrastructure, and it becomes a whole lot easier when you have not just the people that are on the board, but also the people that have a keen interest, such as yourselves, actually jumping in and helping, because there's no shortage of tasks, whether it's opening up the clubhouse and trying to get things going and getting the lines flushed out and getting it ready for the season, or even just taking care of the myriad of little things that need to be addressed throughout the summer to ensure that we have nice facilities, and even something as simple as welcoming people that walk up to the fence and they want to know more about gliding. That's really what makes a difference for our organization and our soaring community. I'm also really pleased to have Noel stepping in as chairperson. I think he's going to do a great job, but I have been soaring since I got into it when I was 18, but I'm always in awe of the people such as Matt and Ron and so many other people that are just, despite the fact that they do this for a living, they still want to go out to an airport, hang around and go fly airplanes, you know, and Bob Stoney and these others. So it's really an honor and just a hell of a lot of fun. So thanks.
Hey,
Thanks,
Ron,
Jim.
you need to mute your mic.
Oh,
Thanks.
how's that?
That's great. Thank you, Ron. Chris Clicks, would you mind saying a few words and letting people know what you're looking forward to this year?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I start out, I guess, I've been with SGC just about, well, not quite as long as Ron Bellamy, but I first obtained my U.S. glider license in Germany, actually in 1976, and my single engine land power in Bellingham, Washington in 78, which is also about the same year that I first joined the University of Washington Soaring Club, later to become Evergreen Soaring. And then also SGC, about 78. I graduated from A&P school in about 1980. In school, I actually overhauled one engine, and later overhauled my own engine on the PA-12 that I then operated for several years as a towplane evergreen. I worked for several years in the small sailplane repair shop and learned composite repair skills. I worked for Stoddard Hamilton Aircraft for about 17 years, ran their R&D shop, constructing, maintaining their fleet of Glass Airs and Glass Stars. Somewhere in there, I also worked for Boeing, but that doesn't matter so much. I obtained my inspection authorization in 1999, ran my own aircraft maintenance and repair business for 23 years, working on both GA aircraft and sailplanes. I was a dealer for Symphony Aircraft, a certified version of a Glass Star for a number of years. I was also a dealer for DG sailplanes, during which time I secured a government contract and delivered 19 aircraft to the U.S. Air Force Academy. I also hold a commercial and instrument rating POTS license. I have over 600 hours logged as Towpilot, towing gliders in Cessna 150, 150, 160 horse PA-12, which was mine, Super Cub, and several Pawnees. I currently fly an LS-7 that I rebuilt from a total loss. And I also am currently rebuilding a DG-808C competition sailplane that I also obtained as a total loss. And now I'm retired. And because I'm always learning, I don't claim to be an expert on anything, although I do feel that I have something to contribute. So also, by voting for me, you actually voted for, you got 2 for 1, because my wife, Nan, is very supportive and also wants to help out. We're both problem solvers, love to have a new challenge, and I hope that I can serve you the best that I can. I guess that's all I had.
Thanks, Chris. Anything you're looking forward to in 2023, either on the club front or personally? Any soaring goals this year?
To keep flying my glider and having fun. That's the biggest thing. I think that's what we're all here for, is to have fun. So it doesn't matter if we're flying gliders or tow pilots or whatever. We're all here to fly more. And I think that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate that you finally got retirement and got some time back, and you're turning around and immediately volunteering for the club. So thank you for that. I was going to mention Nan, but you've already done that some. But I do want to let folks know, Chris is not. I don't know what the right term is. I was going to say underselling, but that's the wrong term. He is making a very good point about Nan's involvement. For those that don't know, Nan has already, since we held the closing party for the training center in October, been out with Chris to the Ephrata facility at least once or twice more, and has been undertaking major efforts to reorganize the facility, to freshen it up, to potentially change out some furniture. So hopefully you all will be able to see and benefit from their efforts and have a sort of refreshed and renewed facility there for us to all enjoy this year. And I just want to extend my thanks for all the work that Nan and Chris have both put in and are going to be continuing to put in. So thank you both. All right, Henry, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody and mention any soaring goals you got for this year?
Sure. Is that working? Yeah. Hi, I'm Henry. I've been on the board for a year now, so it's my second year, and yeah, my background is I'm from the UK originally, my sins, and I started soaring in about 92, so I was just checking that out. It's almost 30 years of flying, but I've been, rather than all these people that have flown all these other aircraft, I've basically only flown gliders. So anything with an engine kind of scares me, so I keep well clear of those. Yeah, since I've I've been in Seattle now for about 10 years, actually, which is somewhat surprisingly long. But I now have a small family, so I seem to spend a lot of time with that. So really my goals now are just to try and get as much flying in as I can, whilst trying to keep my kids from hurting themselves or whatever else. So yeah, really like lacking time to fly is one of the issues at the moment. I guess my goals are just to fly as much as I can cross country. I'm really only interested in flying long cross country flights, and especially in the mountains. And I've been really enjoyed flying the DG 1000 when we had that, and taking other people up and trying to give as many people good experiences and seeing what's possible in this area. And this is like one of the best areas I've flown in the world, when the conditions are good, which is not always, but yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thanks, Henry. I'll also say that, like Mike Bamberg, Henry is pulling double duty for us. He is both on the SGC board. He is also a Soaring Foundation member. So thank you for your double service, sir.
No problem.
All right. And that leaves little old me. I am not going to go on at length because you guys have heard enough from me and are going to hear enough from me tonight. But just a quick primer. I got both my power license and my glider license around about 2006, 2007, and have enjoyed flying both, mostly gliders. I've got about 1,000 hours in gliders and only about 200 hours in power. But I built my own home built that's just about ready for first flight, and done a lot of cross country as well as contest flying. I've organized contests and served on the board both of Evergreen and of the SGC. My goals for this year, as I've already stated, to really help the SGC kind of renew itself and get back to hopefully a high level of engagement and activity this year. And then on the personal front, for those that are not aware, like Henry, I really enjoy long cross countries, and I enjoy mentoring people and helping people learn to fly cross country. And so as a part of that mission, I have actually sold my racing ship and taken a step back from national competitions in order to acquire, along with a couple of other individuals, this Duodiscus, which is currently being refitted with some fresh avionics and will hopefully be on the line by the end of March. And 2 or 3 of us will be flying it this year in hopes of providing a lot of cross-country mentorship, as well as some introduction rides, and then maybe as an incentive and a reward for folks that come out and help out at our events, especially if they are student pilots or recently soloed pilots from other clubs. Maybe they come out and help at an event, and to recognize their participation and their help to the SGC, I'd love to get them into an awesome cross-country flight and really, set that hook so we keep them active in our pilot population for a long time to come. Does anybody out there have any questions for our board members? Anything they want to ask the board in terms of just our general outlook or our goals for the year?
I know other person that I wanted to recognize and should have, and that is a big shout out to Randy Scott, who is our treasurer, and he is key. He stepped forward last year and has really helped us kind of dive into the numbers, and I have to admit, I think without his help, I think we'd be in some pretty significant trouble, more so than some of the rough times that we're seeing. So Randy, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I appreciate being here.
Thanks, Jim. I was you stole the words from my mouth. I was about to recognize a couple folks who are not officially on the board, but who are super key, and you've said it better than I could about Randy. While we got you on the camera there, Randy, would you be willing to just give everybody a quick introduction and talk a little bit about your soaring goals for the year?
Sure. So I came at this completely differently. I am a pipe fitter by trade, and I pulled wrenches for about 16 years, and then I went to work for my local union as a organizer and then director of the state pipe trades in Washington State, covering about 12,000 folks in Washington State. And I handled the finances, which brings me to the how I know a little bit about QuickBooks and how to put together good financial reports, because I used to work for a bunch of business managers that if I didn't do it right, they would tell me. I got into aviation late in life, about 10 years ago. I am a current member of Valley Flyers down at Auburn, and I've really enjoyed that. I kind of got started in gliders when I wandered out to Bergseth about 10 years ago, but I decided I had to go get a rating. So I went down to Boeing Field and found an instructor and stuck it out with him. And I have circled back to gliders. And during the year of COVID, I bought a HPH 304C, which that is my goal, is to fly that more. And so I'm looking forward to this summer and some more training and always learning.
Thanks, Randy. I hope we get you to cloud base many times this year. You need to exercise that 304. We've got one other person. Go ahead, Mr. Bamberg.
I was busy texting you when I was trying to talk with everyone else, so I missed one of the steps that I should have said when I was when I was talking about it. I, like Noel, truly love to do cross-country soaring and love to teach it, to the point that many years ago when my club forbade the use of two-place gliders for cross-country, I went and bought a 103 all the way back in New York. So 9-day trip to get my glider. But I like to fly cross-country and I like to fly, period. I've been a professional flight instructor for 30 years almost now, and most of that time also in gliders. And so I'm hoping to be able to do a couple of things. Well, when we get back to the foundation, we'll talk a little bit about some of the goals of the foundation, at least what the board is hoping to do. And from that, you'll see that I might not be in my glider as often as I thought I would.
Yeah, but Mike, you've got a self-launcher now, so you can go any day.
Isn't it great?
So jealous. Thank you. All right. I know that we have volunteers who help in a lot of different ways, but there's one person who's here tonight who has really served stalwart service for many, many years for the organization, and who for all intents and purposes I'm aware of, is going to continue serving this year as well. And that's Mr. Jim McNeil. Jim has been a longtime member of SGC and has served as our webmaster and secretary for all of our meetings and meeting minutes and a lot of communications things. And it's one of those sort of unsung positions that's actually kind of a linchpin and helps everyone stay organized and keep track of things and make sure we've got solid records. So Jim, I don't want to put you on the spot because we didn't talk about this a ton, but would you be willing to say a couple words and let everybody know who you are?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this camera, I haven't used this camera on this laptop before. Oh, it's really dark, isn't it? Okay, not too bad. Yeah, I'm a non-flying member of SGC now, as I'm approaching the end of my 7th decade. Father Time, Mother Nature said, well, it's best if you stay on the ground. Best, it's safer for everybody if I stay on the ground. So being secretary and webmaster at least exercises my brain cells a little bit, so I can sort of keep that stuff going. And still being a part of the group here is fun. I started in early 1970s flying gliders after getting my single engine land, and over the years been partners in SHK1, Aster CS77, LS4A with Jim Simmons. Actually, Simmons and I were partners for many years in different gliders, and so that's always great fun. And retired from Boeing in essentially in 2008, so I my hobby, which is computers and airplanes, I actually got paid for at Boeing. Worked on computers and airplanes, so that worked out pretty good. So anyway, that's my story.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. And then there is one more person before we move on here that I would like to recognize, because they've, again, put in just a ton of work over the years, and is not always out in front, but is nevertheless critical. And that's Rita Edris. She has served as the treasurer for the SGC Soaring Foundation for many years, and also a great pilot in her own right, DG 1000 member for many years, as well as having her own glider, or in a partnership in a glider now. So Rita, would you be willing to give everybody a quick introduction and let them know about your 2023 goals?
Oh, yes. So thank you for the recognition. I appreciate it. And for the quick history, that I started flying hang gliders in 1987. Did that for 13 years, participated in 4 Women's World Championships, and one of them brought me here. And in 2000, me and Rick, we crossed over to flying sailplanes. And that really was a wonderful time, when there were so many pilots flying and the activity was so high at the freighter that we really had to watch to get in line in time if you don't want to take off being 15 in line and take off at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. But anyhow, so since 2005, I have been doing the bookkeeping, treasury work for the foundation. And actually, I will be resigning this year and looking for not a replacement, but I'm looking for a new treasurer, which I do have somebody who might be willing to take on. And it's not 100% yet, and no hurry. I will wrap up 2022 and do the audit and the tax return and everything to finish up all this, the last year's activities, and then move forward from that. And well, I would like to fly the Minilac more, of course, and you see how all that will go. And even though if I'm not going to be the treasurer anymore, I'm still happy to help out wherever I can. I think it will be just easier on me a little bit when it's not on the schedule and I have to, when life throws other curveballs, and then I still have another liability beyond working full time and all of that. So look forward to have the time to fly, participate in events, and help out as much as I can, and contribute to all the efforts of bringing back soaring to IFRETA and into the region, and with the SGC and the SGCSF into that activity level and fun times that we used to have. And we have, I think, COVID and a lot of things put a dampener on it and other things, but I hope I see a lot of new energy and effort put towards making it again a flying paradise out there, and we have all what we need for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. I want to point out that we've got several more folks on the call tonight who are helping out or have helped out in many ways. Some have been integral to the SGC essentially since its founding, like Jim Simmons, who's with us tonight, who continues to help and volunteer even though he's no longer flying. Jim, even still to this day, helps with entering tow cards and keeping folks like me who are still somewhat new to this whole organization and sport even after 15 years on the straight and narrow, and reminding me of what's been done before and what's gone before. So thank you to Jim, and thank you to many of you on this call who volunteer. I'm sorry I can't recognize everybody and have everybody speak because we're going to run out of time, but I definitely wanted everyone to get a sense of who our active leaders are and our key board members, so that as all of you go forward through the year, You know who you can reach out to, who you can talk to, and who we are that are essentially making some of the key decisions and trying to drive the future direction of the organization, so that you feel that you can come to us and talk to us and that we can be responsive to how you want to see the organization run, because ultimately it is a collective. Let me go back to sharing my screen here, and we're going to move on to a couple more things. And thank you again to all the board members who are serving this year and all the volunteers who help out. A
Hey,
quick
Noel,
note.
did, Ron Bellamy, did he say anything?
Yeah, I just said a little bit, but I figured everybody knows me.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Thank you for not forgetting me.
Oh, Ron, you are unforgettable.
It has been a pleasure. I must say, I've had a chance to do practically all the different roles, and it really it's an honor to still be wanted to be on the board of directors, and it's a pleasure to be out there flying with every one of you guys. It really just keeps me going. You're my superchargers.
And you, sir, are a supercharged energy source for the rest of us with that positive outlook. All right, a quick note about rates and fees, because I know I've sent a message about this to all of you, and because our web system has been sending out some automated reminders about renewing your membership. To those of you that have renewed your membership, thank you very much. However, and I will also say they are critical at this time. As we've mentioned, we're a bit low on funds right now. We're working on ways to alleviate that, and we'll have more information for that as it develops. But those renewals are welcomed, and they're going to be put to good use as our early season bills like insurance and Towplane annuals start to come up here. But we are still in the process of evaluating fees for 2023. And we hope to announce them by the end of this month or early February at the latest, so that you all have a chance to either make decisions and or make your payments well before we get into the soaring season. We just want to take a really good look at what our expenses really are in this current era, and what we need to do in order to have a sustainable organization that we know will be around and can offer consistent operations and offer value that also fits with the way that people are using EFRADA and the SGC resources in this current era, right? We need to match what we're charging and how we're charging with how things are being used and what people want. To that end, we have a committee working on this, but all of you are welcome to provide your thoughts and input. We have an email address that in the past was not able to be used by the public. I've changed that now at the risk of hopefully not opening up too much spam from just random bots out there. But all of the SGC board members have an official SeattleGliderCouncil.org email address. And if any of you send an email to sgcboard@SeattleGliderCouncil.org, all board members will get a copy of whatever you send. So please, your pilots, I'm going to ask you to watch your language because we're pilots, but your helpful suggestions and feedback are always welcome. And we will try to take everything into account as we go forward with those rates and fees. Having said that, I want to briefly touch on the SGC from the perspective of its scope and its purpose. I had actually hoped to do a little bit more on this tonight, but I, to be frank, ran out of time to go through all the documents and pick out the best pieces for you guys. So rather than read a long document, I'm just going to cover a couple highlights and then encourage all of you to go read something. It's worth noting that the Seattle Glider Council is about a lot more than just tows at EFRADA. I've touched on that a little bit already tonight, and I've already said this, but I'm going to repeat it. The organization was founded with that word council in the name very deliberately. If you read some of the early documents, it is very clear that it was supposed to be a regional council that helps organize and unify activities across the whole part of the U.S. that we're in here. I feel like while we have provided a lot of value as the Seattle Glider Council in terms of operations at Ephrata, it would not be, I think, unfair, without criticizing any individual, to say that we have fallen back from that a little bit over the last 10 or 20 years that I've been involved, and we've kind of gotten a little set in our ways, but we really can and should try to fulfill that mission. There's still a usefulness there. There's still a need, as many of the clubs in the northwestern US and southern Canada are small, isolated pockets of soaring aficionados. There's a role for us to play as an organizing and unifying force that is maybe not focused on some of the things that the entire SSA or the Canadian Soaring National Organization is, but that can help make sure that all of these groups are all functional and sharing resources and sharing information and maximizing our successes. To that end, I want to show you all a document that's been mentioned a couple of times in recent history, but maybe not everybody on this call has seen or heard about. If you go to the SeattleGliderCouncil.org website, first of all, a little tip that a lot of people don't know, these little drop downs, you can actually also just click on the very top item and it's its own page. If you click on the information word on the menu here, you will find links to several key documents. And the third one here is called The Origin and Basis of the Seattle Glider Council. I really highly encourage you all on these rainy winter nights where you only have thermals to dream about and can't actually fly, to try to skim or read through this document. This is what it looks like. It was published in 1970, so this is a half century old at this point, but it's still relevant today, and it's an important part of our history. And it talks about the origin of the organization, as the title says, and kind of goes through some of the history. The founding of Towline, the Pacific Northwest Soaring Association, and it's valuable context, I think, for what the SGC was, or members were trying to do when they founded the organization, and what we can still do to benefit the region. So again, I'm not going to dictate this out to you guys and put everybody to sleep with a bedtime story here, but it is interesting reading. It's an interesting part of our history, and I encourage all of you to go to the SGC website, click on information, and read that. If you do need a bedtime story to help you with some insomnia, we do have our bylaws and articles of incorporation. They are a bit of a dry read, but I will also say, semi-seriously, it would be good for us to skim some of these things, especially our bylaws. There are some things that, again, I think we've gotten set in our ways that don't necessarily comport directly with some of the things said in our bylaws. So several individuals on the board this year, including myself, have really started to take a look at those and try to get us back in line with those bylaws. But as somebody else has already pointed out to me privately in the last couple of days, these are living documents as well. And so one of the reasons why some of you might want to read these is because if you spot anything in the bylaws that you think doesn't match with what our mission should be, or doesn't match with how we ought to be operating, I welcome and encourage you to raise that point with the board so that we can then take it up and take it to the membership, and maybe it's time to revise some sections of our bylaws. There's nothing wrong with that. And it may in fact be critical to make sure that we are relevant and viable into the future. So again, your feedback and suggestions are welcome. Any questions about that from anybody before I move on? All right, cool. What I'd like to do now, since I've kind of gone on about the SGC, is I'd like to turn attention to the SGC Soaring Foundation. This is a point of confusion by many in the organization and in both organizations. And right here at the beginning of the year, what I wanted to do is just take a minute for those of you that are still awakened with me to help clarify what these two organizations are, kind of where some of the responsibilities lay. And then I'm going to turn it over to the Soaring Foundation board to talk to you guys for a few minutes about some of the things that they're looking at right now and hoping to achieve in 2023. Before we get there, though, what I want to do, like I said, is to clarify the difference between the two organizations. This is a common point of confusion. So, in brief, this is an inexact summary, but for purposes of time, the way to think about it is tow planes, tow operations, and daily upkeep are handled by the SGC. Okay, that's part of what we hold responsibility for. The SGC is a regional council. Like I said, its intention is to promote the sport and assist in unifying the sport and the organizations across the Northwest. Okay. It is a not-for-profit organization, but it is not a tax-deductible charitable entity. The Soaring Foundation, however, is a 501c3 tax-deductible nonprofit charitable organization. The SGC Soaring Foundation is the organization that owns the Ephrata Training Center and handles the lease with the Port of Ephrata. The Soaring Foundation leases that facility back to the SGC for that daily operation and upkeep that I mentioned at the top. The Soaring Foundation has a mission as part of its sort of nonprofit charter, and that is to promote soaring safety and training. And this is one of the reasons why you're going to hear, hopefully consistently, from all of us on both boards. When we talk about Ephrata, you're going to hear us refer to it as a training facility, because if we look back at the bylaws, if we look at the Soaring Foundation mission, that is what is intended to be. I'm happy that we use it for club events, that we use it to build camaraderie, but it is a training facility, and we're hoping to really lean into that some this year and make it even more of a facility for improving training and safety and skill improvement for all of us. As many of you know, the Soaring Foundation up until partway through last year had a DG-1000. That DG-1000 was donated by John Daly. I apologize if I misspelled his name. In around 2004, if I'm remembering correctly, just before I got into the sport. And he really wanted it to promote and improve cross-country soaring out there. The foundation owned that asset, but then leased it back to the SGC, and it was operated as a group of pilots that flew and sort of took responsibility for it during the season. So hopefully that's an overview of the two organizations and helps people understand the difference between them. I am going to turn it over now to the board of the Soaring Foundation, Mike Bamberg, Henry Rebick, and Phil Rose. And I'd like them to just spend a few minutes, if they could, talking about the state of the foundation and their 2023 plans, because I think it's some interesting stuff that you all might want to know. Take it away, Mike.
Henry, just raise your hand and jump in whenever. Henry and I and Phil Rose have ended up being this board this year, and we started out by trying to figure out what it is exactly that the foundation's supposed to do. And you heard from Noel what we believe it to be and what he believes it to be, and that is we are promoting safety and training. And in particular, John, who donated the DG-1000, wanted to make sure that we had equipment that was appropriate for training cross country. You've also heard Noel mention that he's taken it upon himself, as I did many years ago, to buy himself a two-place glider so he can extend those services to people. Now, we lost the DG-1000, but that may have given us a couple of very interesting opportunities. And the first thing to tell you is the intent is to get another two-place sailplane available for cross-country training. What we're going to, at this time, what we're considering is, and what many of you don't know, and I only know it because I was asked by the Soaring Safety Foundation to participate, the SSA's going to have an additional designation. As you may know, there are something called SSA instructors, and that's where you go to get your ABC badge and your bronze badge and all these other achievement badges, which are part of your training. But there was a program many years ago for cross-country training, and that kind of fell to the wayside, like some of the other things that Noel mentioned. And the SSA is now actively, and I will be participating in a presentation at the convention, actively beginning a new selection process, a designated syllabus. It's not a restrictive syllabus, that's great. But the point is that it is a way to designate people who are either instructors or are what are called subject matter experts. So someone like Noel, who doesn't have a CFIG, can still be doing mentoring can still be doing mentoring. Those of you that never intend to get a CFIG but would like to be a mentor, there's going to be that available with some very specific requirements, so that it's not just someone who spent some time in an aircraft flying cross country. So there's some very specific requirements. And right now, the foundation is trying to rewrite the processes, procedures, and everything else having to do with acquiring and providing a two-place glider for cross-country training. We are hopeful that we may be able to leverage through the possibility of getting donations, as Noel mentioned. We can seek out and promise people that if they donate, they can do a tax deduction, which is important for a lot of people. So just letting you know that we're, as a foundation, are anxious to see the facility being used, anxious to promote it, not only to those events that we already have scheduled or have traditionally scheduled, but for other events, and to spread it out a little bit further than just Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and British Columbia, which is our predominant area of collecting people. So the point is that just like Noel and has mentioned about the SGC board, the foundation board is looking at how we can kind of get things going back again in the idea that this is a training facility. Henry, you want to add anything?
To be honest, I haven't got a huge amount to add, other than just to kind of reiterate that we're very keen to push the cross-country training, and that we realise that the DG in the past, although it's been a great asset and many people seem to have brilliant experiences from flying that glider over the last sort of 10 years, we realise that in some ways it definitely needs to change, so that we can hopefully still have a similar asset but use it much more focused on actually training, rather than just having kind of a fun glider to fly around. But other than that, yeah, I don't have a huge amount to add other than that.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. One of the, and I'm just going to bring this up just so you know what we're thinking about and why we're thinking about it. One of the comments I got before I really got too deeply involved, several of you know that I also didn't step back fast enough when someone said, can we get someone to manage the DustUp? And I'm doing it again this year. So I didn't learn enough last year, I guess. But in any case, one of the comments I heard was, well, the DustUp was promoted as a training camp where I could come and learn cross-country training. And I got there and I helped run the line, and I never got a single flight. No one ever did anything. And, you know, looking back on my responsibilities as the manager of that event, first of all, that was first time, so I got a little bit of an excuse. But the point is, that needs to be organized as a training event. And in order to do that, we've got to have aircraft that can be used for training. And so one of the things that the foundation is going to be doing is reaching out to clubs and, number one, hoping that they'll bring equipment to these kinds of events so that we can truly fulfill the training aspect of what we're doing in Ephrata. So I'll quit now. Maybe.
No, don't quit. We need you. Thanks, Mike and Henry. And certainly if you guys think of more, please chime back in. I just want to add a couple footnotes onto what Mike said. First of all, for those that are not super aware, the DustUp and Region 8 have traditionally been sort of sponsored or underwritten by the Soaring Foundation, partly because we recognize that in coming out in flying cross-country events, whether they're for fun at the DustUp or for competition like the Region 8 contest, those are learning opportunities and those are safety opportunities in terms of the safety briefings we hold in the morning and the skills and familiarity and recency that people get. And so the Soaring Foundation is an integral part of those. And Mike Bamberg, who I see his hand is raised, is also going to be leading the Region 8 contest organization as well this year. So my thanks to Mike for taking a turn at that while I step back a little bit this year on those. And my thanks to all of you in advance for helping Mike make those events successful, because no one person can do it on their own. Go ahead, Mike.
So one of the things which many of you don't have visibility to yet, but Chris Clicks put together some of the documents that we're using to reference what we should be doing in one organization or the other. And one of the things about being a 501c3 is the amount of money that comes into the organization has to support the function of the organization. And that's why the money comes through the foundation when we have these training events, because if it didn't, then we might not be able to meet the IRS's requirement to be a nonprofit organization.
Does anybody have any questions for the Soaring Foundation before we move on? Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I was just wondering, Mike's kind of touched on the possibility of fundraising and so forth within the context of the foundation. I was just wondering if there's any, at this time, any concrete plans to replace the DG1000. I understand that that's not a quick process. You spent several years doing it for yourself, trying to find an appropriate glider and so forth. Just wondering where we're at with that. I did hear, I think maybe it was in one of the meetings at the end of last year, that our insurance didn't cover a full replacement cost. So in terms of fundraising, what kind of target roughly are we talking about? You know, that kind of thing. Just do we have a timeline sketched out yet, or are it still early days? Just a little bit of level setting would be great.
Okay, great. I'm glad you asked, James. Here's the thing. I actually went up on Wings and Wheels last night and looked and found how many DGs had been listed on Wings and Wheels, but had been canceled, not being sold, canceled, not being renewed. Those of you that spend time on Wings and Wheels know what I'm talking about. And they vary in price from something as inexpensive as $60,000, needing some refinish work, but still flyable and quite capable, all the way up to $165,000 for a T model XL. And so the point is that we're looking, and primarily we've been looking at a DG correction, a duodiscus for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've had the opportunity to fly duodiscus, Grobes, I've flown the new Twin Shark, and some aircraft are easy to learn to fly and some are not. And one of the reasons why, and I'm just going to jump in on Noel for a second, one of the reasons why Noel was so persistent at looking for a duodiscus is because its handling is so much like a smaller, lighter ship. And if you've flown a Grobe, you know it isn't. And even if you've flown something like a DG-1000, it's not nearly as easy to fly as a duodiscus. So here's the point. We're in the search for a duodiscus. We're in the search for an aircraft that maybe can be partially donated. We're in the search for opportunities to perhaps leverage the money that we received into more than one aircraft. Now, all of this is what we're looking at, what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know, and I can't promise that we'll have a new two-place glider available at Ephrata in the early spring of this year. There's nothing right now on the market and nothing right now that we can run out and buy. And again, as you've already heard several times, each of the boards is interested in trying to drive a newer direction for both of these organizations in conformance with what we've done in the past, and we're welcome to change all those things. But the point is, if we could get access to 2 or 3 two-place, high-performance two-place gliders at Ephrata at these meetings like the DustUp, that would make a big difference. And you know, it's not enough to have 1 or 2. And so that's what we're looking to do, and that's the approach that we're taking. And so cannot promise that there's going to be another glider ready to run on the 1st of April. In fact, it's highly unlikely, given what's out there available and the approach we're trying to take.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it's not a thing you solve in a month or two, but hearing about the expanded potential of expanding the fleet is certainly interesting to hear too. So thanks.
Okay, you're welcome.
And in case it helps people, I'm just going to give a couple of numbers and throw out a couple of things to help provide context for those that are not as familiar with this. Having searched for this thing for 4+ years and having looked at a lot of gliders on the market, actually physically going to see two-place gliders in various parts of the United States and doing pre-buy inspections and stuff like that, I want to commend the Soaring Foundation board for being disciplined in this approach. I have seen people run out and buy gliders based on potential or desire, and then wind up with a ship that is very hard to get into flying shape or much more expensive than anticipated, or comes with a long tail of maintenance because it has a motor or whatever. And I think that the Soaring Foundation board is being very realistic and very diligent in their approach to this. They are finding or in my opinion, the right balance between making sure that we have a resource that we can use to fulfill these missions, but not being so worried about the short term that they run out and get something that's going to run the organization into a corner financially or labor-wise. Mike, if you want to jump in, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things, and we've been around this several times, and it's the same approach that Noel went to. You know, having a motor glider sounds like a great idea. And of course, I own one and I love it. But what happens is when you have a motor glider, you have additional maintenance, you have additional requirements on the pilots. And so all of our mentors would have to have a motor glider endorsement, even if it's just a sustainer. And most of the pilots that we want to move into one of the subject matter experts would also have to go through that process and get that done. So it adds a couple of extra burdens that we don't think are necessary in order to fulfill the mission. So that's where that is with regard to motor gliders.
Thanks, Mike. Again, just a couple numbers for context for folks, and then I'll move us on. But the ship that I got in partnership with a couple other folks is an early model duo, and had been converted to experimental use and flown hard out of Reno in Wave and stuff like that. And even it was $135,000 plus tax. And we are going to be dumping probably another $20,000 to $25,000 into it this winter to replace worn out avionics, to fix some minor damage, to convert some things back to more standard operations. Because again, we need a ship that people can easily jump in and fly and have their brain free to learn about cross-country soaring and not be caught up in the particulars of some weird model or some ship that is not going to be similar to what they're flying when they move to a single place ship. If you want some numbers just to have rattling around in your brain, don't quote me on the exact insurance coverage that the foundation had for the DG-1000. I believe it was somewhere just north of like $110,000, $120,000, something like that. So that already right there, you can see how this costs more than that. It's not to say that the insurance coverage was not reasonable for that ship. That ship was aging. That ship had a lot of miles on it, and it was a very basic, straightforward DG-1000. This has a sustainer motor that did not. There's some other reasons around that. But yeah, just a sec, Mike. Let me get through this real quick. So again, I just want to give people some thoughts. If you want to look at some other ships, a brand new Duodiscus is a 1.5 year wait. It's $125,000 to $130,000 just for the airframe. Once you add everything up in terms of like trailer and customs and shipping and avionics and outfitting and parachutes and everything like that, I've done all this math for the last 5 years, so trust me on these numbers. That is $225,000, and like I said, a 1.5 year wait. And that's before the last 6 months of inflation, by the way. If you want to look at an ASK-21, which is not quite as high performance, but also an excellent handling, easy to fly cross-country trainer, ASK-21 is almost the exact same price. You can maybe save $10,000 or $15,000 over a Duodiscus, but it's not much.
And no one is selling one of those right now.
And you are a 2 to 3 year waits potentially from the AS factory, because they pump those things out for all the clubs over in Europe first and foremost, and then the rest of their shop time is on the new AS-33 and AS-34 and whatever. The third option, one of the ones Mike mentioned, if we're talking about two-seaters that are great for training, that are not complicated, that handle really easily for newer pilots, Twin Shark's the other one that comes to mind. The Twin Shark, I have not flown one yet, but Mike and a few others in the Western US have. They all claim that it's a beautiful handling ship. That is $250,000 to $275,000. You get incredible workmanship and an incredible ship, but you can see how there's a gap here, both in time and money, from what we had in terms of insurance coverage on the DG-1000 and what's possible if we don't just find something on the market that just happens to be great. And again, I was looking at every single ship that came on the market, and it took me 4 years to find an acceptable one. So that's just the unfortunate reality. If any of you have $100,000 burning a hole in your pocket and you want to make a tax-deductible donation to the Soaring Foundation, we could potentially get a brand new Duo or K-21. But I leave that as a discussion for you in the future. Mike, anything else on that topic?
So just to tell you, most of you may or may not have read Pat Costello's insurance statements that he puts in SSA from year to year. But what we covered with insurance was the airframe. And the trailer we still have, still part of the foundation's assets. However, the organization that ended up winning the bid on the remains of the glider, we have approached them and given them a proposal to buy the trailer since it's all ready and they need one. And Henry's been running that forward, and we haven't gotten a reply back yet, but we're hoping to see that sometime this week. And that will give additional funds beyond what we got in the insurance. So I just want to let you know that there's more to it than just what the insurance had.
Yeah, I just say no. I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but I thought it was more like 138 that we got back from the insurance, and then plus maybe 15 to 20 we may get for the trailer. But it was slightly more than you were saying. But it's still, yeah, short of a new glider.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, and for everybody out there, I make no claims about being on the foundation board or knowing the ins and outs. I highly recommend any of you who want to carry this conversation forward, definitely chat with Henry, chat with Mike, maybe ask Rita, she's the treasurer of the foundation, if you want some more information on the numbers there. And my thanks to all of them for working on this. Any other questions on this topic before we move on? All right, awesome. Let me go ahead and bring my screen back up then. And let's talk a little bit about key events and dates in 2023. And I'm not going to lie, this is the point in the slide presentation where I started to run out of time for tonight. And so I did not get as much detail in here as I'd like. But just as a heads up to help you all start thinking about the season ahead and how we can start participating together. First things first, general membership meetings, we've started them up. I know we were a little delayed here in January, but we're going to be targeting again first Monday of the month. From here forward, we typically do not do these during the core of the soaring season, since hopefully people are out either flying at a FREDA or with their local club or at a contest or event or encampment. But we are intending to hold these January to May and September to December. So start penciling those out. Topics are TBD, but the board is already kicking around ideas in terms of safety presentations, again, leaning into this concept of cross-country mentorship, preparation, regaining currency for those of us that are still getting back to flying after COVID, and potentially some guest speakers to talk about new and interesting things going on in the soaring community as well, whether it's the Soaring Safety Foundation, the new cross-country soaring mentorship or instruction program the SSA is working on that Mike Bamberg talked about, or whatever else we can find. We're hoping to bring not only some camaraderie and opportunities for us to engage together in these meetings, but also some interesting information that you guys feel is valuable to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours with us on Monday nights. So all that is to say that if any of you have a topic that you're really curious to learn more about, let the board know and we can maybe make it a topic for one of these meetings. Or if you're aware of some new product or some new technique or some guest speaker that you think would be interesting to have, let us know and we can reach out to that person or that organization and see what we can do. We'd love to have your thoughts here. What you guys are curious about is what we want to know about. Go ahead, Mike.
So that does fold into something that the foundation is trying to do, and that is we'd like to be able to have online training information having to do with these different events. So having them on the Monday membership meetings is one time. But I'm willing to hold meetings virtually any evening except when Noel ties me down. And I've done a lot of, I was a professor. I've done a lot of training. I've done a lot of training in the Willamette Valley on cross country. And I have many videos out there. Just look up CFI Mike on YouTube and you'll see a bunch of stuff that's available. But there's a lot of things that we would like to make available through the foundation. Some of the stuff will go up to the foundation YouTube channel rather than Mike Bamberg's YouTube channel.
And I'm just showing that briefly for those of you that aren't aware of the SGC Soaring Foundation YouTube channel, since Mike mentioned it. We've got this as a resource. We post these general membership meeting recordings to them. And we also have videos for area briefings, introductions to cross-country through the proving grounds tasks and a bunch of other things. So as Mike mentioned, we hope to be expanding this resource for all of you and for the soaring audience in general throughout the course of this year, whether it be through just simple videos posted or as recordings of sessions that Mike and others hold that supplement the other things we do. And thanks, Mike. James Cooper, looks like you got a question or a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly. I think there's also an opportunity, over the years that I've been involved, maybe 6 or so years, going to the SGC meetings, at Boeing Field. There's been, quite a few great presentations that have been made over the time. And uploading those presentations to the SGC website would be great. Just a couple things. I remember Kevin Finke doing a great presentation on buying your first glider and all the things that you should consider when you're interested in the market for a glider. That was really good. Thomas Vanderville doing a presentation on, extended local area soaring out of Arlington and so forth, and his first steps into cross country, things like that. That if we could compile those and have them as resources on the club website, that'd be great.
So I'm just taking notes. That's good stuff, James. Thank you. As one final note here on the topic, or final note for now, on the topic of general membership meetings, we have heard loud and clear from several of you that people would like to go back to in-person meetings. And as I've mentioned several times, one of the things I want to do is to promote more camaraderie, more connectedness across the organization this year. And so I'm looking at ways we can do that. However, there's this push-pull with the idea of extending our reach and ensuring that we are supporting and engaging other members from other parts of the region and other clubs that are not local. And so we need to try to thread the needle here and find out how can we have these meetings in a way that doesn't cut out part of our audience who would be interested in these topics, but provide that togetherness. And I don't have a definite answer for you guys yet. A lot of people say, oh, we'll just have the meetings and then record them or broadcast them. As a technology professional, I'll tell you that's just a lot more complicated than it sounds at first blush, especially if we want to record questions and answers and audience participation. So just know that that's something I'm looking at. If any of you have resources you want to offer or help out with that, I'm all ears. But know that even if you don't hear anything specific from me here in the short term, I am aware and I have heard loud and clear that some of you would really like to go back to in-person meetings, and we're going to see how we can make that happen. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that it's been really nice that SGC has had the meetings online, because it's been possible to join them coming from Willamette. And it feels to me, to be a little blunt about it, going back to in-person meetings basically blurs the line between SGC being an evergreen extension, maybe a little bit from PSSA, but it feels like it cuts out Willamette, it cuts out Hood River. There's a club in Bend, Oregon that should be connected to part of the Pacific Northwest. It obviously cuts out our Canadian friends. It probably cuts out our Idaho friends. It feels like going backwards. And I acknowledge it's nice to be in person, but since we don't have transporter technology, being able to be connected to you guys other than at the DustUp is really wonderful, and I would prefer that we'd continue in that direction.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate the perfect illustration of this sort of balancing act that we have to try to figure out. And I want to say that I respect and appreciate the time that folks make who are not local to the area to be involved and engaged, and I definitely want to see that continue. So thank you for being a part of this. All right, just to run through some more events here and keep us moving on as the time ticks by tonight. We've got the training center opening. Now that typically happens around early April, but I'm going to let you all know right now that date is TBD. The board is aware of the fact that the runway repaving and remarking that was supposed to happen before the bad weather kicked in last fall was not completed. I'm not aware of all the details yet, but we are preparing to work with the Port of Ephrata to figure that out. And it just so happens that this afternoon, while I was stuck in meetings at work, I got an email from Mike Wren saying that he needs to talk to me about that project and about future operations at Ephrata. He made it sound like it wasn't anything super critical, so I don't want anybody to get scared. But it was a short email that made it clear that he wanted to talk through some things with me. So I'm going to be having that conversation with Mike tomorrow. And then we're going to be having our SGC board meeting on Wednesday. Once we get through both of those, if there's anything to report or any concrete dates that I can hand off to all of you about when the glider runway at Ephrata will be usable again and when we can open up for the season, I will let you all know. Regardless of exactly when the training center opens, of course, as we've touched on already, we've got the DustUp happening this year, Memorial Day weekend. I really hope that I can support Mike Bamberg's efforts, and dovetailing on what he said, I hope that we can get back to a little bit more of what we had pre-COVID, where we had really good participation from PSSA and Evergreen and the Willamette Valley Club, and we actually did have oftentimes 4 or 5 cross-country capable 2-seat gliders out there between all the clubs to really be able to give a lot of people good introductions to cross-country soaring and take people who were early in their cross-country soaring journey and do some lead and follows and help get people out away from the airport safely and successfully, and really have those success moments and those really enjoyable evenings together where I don't know about you guys, but I get a real thrill hearing people chatter about their, oh, that's the farthest I've ever been from Ephrata. Oh, I've never been in the mountains before. Oh, that was really cool, that thermal we all took and we were all gaggling up. That was my first time in a gaggle, right? So I'm looking forward to that. And again, I want to thank all of you in advance for helping Mike Bamberg make that event a real success this year. We've got the Methau encampment going on, and I'm sorry I didn't get a date down here. Is our organizer online? Can he pipe up real briefly and mention the dates?
Okay, here I am. Yeah, it's, let me just pull up my calendar here. It's, I think it's the 17th to 24th of June. It's going to be 8 days, at least that's the current plan. Yes, 17th is a Saturday through the 24th is a Saturday.
Awesome.
We'd have 2 tow planes on the 24th because I think the PSSA Super Cub will have to go back on Friday the 23rd. But otherwise, we're hoping for 3 tow planes, similar to previous years.
Good stuff. Thanks, Brad.
Yep.
And then basically immediately following the Methau encampment, I believe we've got the Region 8 contest again. Mr. Bamberg, any comments you want to make there?
Well, if you've been up to the SSA contest calendar, and you should be able to see it there. I haven't opened up registration. I promised I was going to do that on the 1st. I've been a little busy, but I can do that before the end of the week, so we can start getting people online. One of the things to bring everyone aware of, this last year, both at the DustUp and at Memorial Day, at the Region 8, part of the challenges was the number of tow planes that were available, and that actually put us in a position where we had to restrict the number of pilots at both events. I would rather not do that, but that just means that some of these clubs need to step up and help us out a little bit, and that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you're going to the contest, the SSA actually has a limit on how much we can charge for a tow. We are in the process of applying for a waiver, because the amount we spent on tows last year far exceeded what we were able to get based on what we had promised in the posting for the contest. So that's going to change, and what we'd like to have you thinking about with regard to that is, we're not going to have a discount just because you're coming to a contest. If you were flying a 2,500 foot tow at home, we're hoping that we don't expect to be any more expensive than that, but we're not going to be cheaper than that. And that's just to make sure that we can support all the tow planes that we're hoping are willing to come and tow for us.
Thanks, Mike. just to give people a brief little window into this, not to expand it too much, but for those that are not aware, the SSA contest rules, speaking as somebody who's organized this many times, have strict limits on the amount that we're allowed to charge if we don't apply for a waiver. And because of historical reasons, the SSA contest rules are based around either 1,500 foot or 2,000 foot tows, no higher. We and many other organizations for several years now have been offering either 2,500 foot or 3,000 foot contest tows because we have traditionally recognized that it is way less stressful and less hassle and more enjoyable for most pilots to give them an easier time getting away from tow and climbing up on their initial tow than to have people landing and doing relights. The old school traditional contest mentality was you get a low tow, you pay a small amount for it, and then you work your ass off to get up. And if that means you're late getting out the start gate, well, that's on you because you're not a real contest pilot. And if you have to take a relight, well, then you pay for however much you want to relight for, and you work your ass off again to get out. And that just doesn't comport, in my opinion, as a multi-time contest manager at the regional and national level. That doesn't align with what most pilots are looking for in a regional contest these days. And as ground crew and volunteers, having to work your butt off on the ground in the heat of the summer to get a bunch of relights out with pilots that are stressing about being last up, it just isn't worth the extra money that it brings into the club. So for a few years, what we did was we accepted the SSA's limit on tow fees for contests, but we were giving people that 2,500 foot or occasionally 3,000 foot tow sort of gratis. And as Mike mentioned, over the last year or two, it's come to a head that that arrangement is no longer tenable. We're not making enough money off of the tows to be able to offer enough money to the clubs who are lending us their tow planes for the event to make it make sense for everybody. And so again, this is just some context and background so you all understand why Mike's talking about a waiver and changing what we're charging for the contest. If we hear from a ton of you after I say this, I want a 1,500 foot tow in my contest. Keep the tows $5 or $10 cheaper. Let me and Mike know that. We'll take that into account. But I suspect most of you prefer like a 2,500 foot tow. So if you have any questions about the organization of the contest or what I've just talked about here with tows, please feel free to reach out to Mike and myself, and we can discuss it further with you. Jumping back to our calendar for the year, such as it is in this slideshow, we do have a couple more encampments that traditionally happen. I don't think we've got firmed up dates, but I know we've got the Evergreen folks oftentimes will do an encampment the week immediately following the DustUp. Tony Wiedeker's group traditionally comes out sometime around that time as well, although I don't know what the status of that is yet. And we would really like to have more club encampments out there. We've got the Willamette Club. We've got some folks from the Vancouver Soaring Association who have recently emailed me. We've got the Hood River folks who have in small groups come up, which is awesome. We really appreciate it. I see we've got a couple of them on the call tonight. If any of you would like to socialize this with your clubs, please, I highly encourage that, and feel free to put myself or any of our board members in touch with your board so that we can figure out how to help get your club and your club members excited and motivated and get value out of the AFREDA facilities and the operations we can offer. Many of us on the call already know this, but AFREDA really is amazing compared to so many other places in the country that I've gone and soared at for helping people learn to fly cross country, for being a safe and forgiving place to fly, and also a fun place to fly that offers different terrains and different opportunities. And we don't want the organization's facilities to be sitting empty in summer. So anything we can do to help work it out with other clubs, to get clubs out here for encampments, for safaris, for events, the better. Are there any people on the call tonight that are working with your clubs already, or talking with your clubs, or hoping to get your club to come out and do an encampment at Afreda this summer?
Well, Noel, yeah, this is Tony. I'm the ops manager this year for Afreda. We're definitely going to be there like we always are. And I've already I even got the schedule put together already as far as what people we're going to be needing. And we also always, of course, included in your DustUp. Actually, a message to Mike Bamberg, since he is the guy who's honchoing this. Feel free to contact me. I'm on the Evergreen Soaring site as well as the SGC Soaring site. So give me a call or a message anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, cool. Those of you that are part of other clubs here on the call tonight, again, I just want to reiterate, anything that I or the board can do to help you if you're curious about how you can get your club out to Afreda, please talk to us. We're happy to meet with you, meet with your board, try to strategize and find ways that make sense for both organizations to cooperate and collaborate.
Noel, just a point. If Tony Wiedeker has an event, who supplies the tow plane? You guys or us?
Typically, it's SGC. I know we've recently had a year or two where there's been mechanical issues or other questions that has resulted in Evergreen helping out, which we appreciate, but it's typically SGC tow planes whenever possible.
Thank you.
Hey, Noel, Ron Clark
Yeah.
here. How you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, Noel, I just wanted to ask about, there seems to be a bit of a roadblock for training tow pilots within the organizations. It's always I've had so many people approach me at Arlington that would love to become tow pilots. They're tail wheel flyers, big hour guys, a couple guys that live close by. You bring it up and it just seems to always be an issue. Has that been discussed? Is that anything that people talk about?
Yes, thank you very much for bringing that up, Ron. It's something we're aware of. It's something that kind of got, I think, bogged down with COVID the last couple of years. There were, I think, a few bad experiences 4 or 5 years ago that really tamped down the interest level in doing that. But I really want us to take a fresh look at that. I've already had discussions with a couple of board members, and we've got what looks like it's going to be a fresh tow plane manager and potentially a fresh chief tow pilot. Stay tuned on that for just a minute. And my hope is to really put some effort into coordinating with not only the SGC and Evergreen, but potentially a couple of other clubs in the area to try to figure out more of a defined path. Personally, I say this is a non-tow pilot, so tow pilots out there, hopefully I don't say anything too terrible here, but personally, I think one of the things we have missing is we don't have a clearly defined path and procedure of you do X, you do Y. This is how you get the confidence of the chief tow pilots or whomever to sign you off. And I think part of what we need to do is figure out what that looks like. What is a procedure or a process that's acceptable to a few of the regional organizations that we can all agree to, and then we figure out how to put that plan into action. And I think that will hopefully free things up. Mr. Bamberg?
So this is something that's been put out there, and I'm finally tuned to it. Some of you know that down at Moses Lake Airport, Grant County, is one of the largest flight schools in the U.S., at least in the Pacific Northwest. And that's, I have a number of my former colleagues as flight instructors who are down there, and they turn out a whole bunch of pilots that are looking for opportunities to build hours. And they're 20 minutes away. And I also fly at Montague, Siskiyou County. They have a bunch of local tow pilots who basically, some of them are retired, but some of them just can take a break and tow. And it only takes 15 minutes to get a tow plane. Having that kind of capability makes any site very attractive. And I think that, as we go forward and working with Noel and the tow people, chief tow pilot and our maintenance people and everything else, we have an opportunity, I think, to get some very enthusiastic young people who would like very much the opportunity to do something like, take a 20-minute drive and do 3 or 4 launches.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that sounds good, Mike. Thanks for the input. Noel, thanks for the input.
Yeah, thank you. And just to reiterate, I think, again, speaking just personally, I think the way forward here is we start to define a process, we figure out how we're going to action that process, and then we, as Mike said, we build some outreach into some of these potential pilot populations so that we can get a flow of tow pilots going forward. And I think once we have at least that process part, somewhat defined, if any of you start to learn of people who are interested in being tow pilots, I think definitely funnel them to myself or maybe Tony and the Evergreen board, and let's see if we can't get that going, because it's definitely an area of need. Cool. Thanks. All right. I'm gonna speed through a few things here because we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour, and I know it's getting late for a lot of us. Feel free to stop me if you have questions or urgent issues, but I'm just gonna kind of run here so we maybe have a couple minutes at the end for stuff. We will probably do our typical training center closing the first weekend in October. Exact date TBD, but I put that out there as a marker because I think the fall got a little bit away from us this year, and in the spirit of being more proactive, I just want everybody thinking about that, and then that'll roll into our banquet and our elections for next year as well. I briefly, before we close out tonight, wanted to just make sort of a statement on our tow planes and our operations, since there's been some questions and issues on that over the last year. And the first thing, the biggest takeaway I want everyone to have here is that we are committed to safe operations, okay, in all aspects. We were made aware of some tow plane concerns in early 2022. And I want everyone to know that whether or not we were very public about it, the 2022 board and several other people who are not on the board but are experienced A&Ps and tow pilots and even an IA all took turns examining our tow aircraft, performing run-ups, checking parts, running to ground various questions and issues that were raised. And throughout all of that, no major issues or discrepancies were found. We did do some things, like we replaced the entire fuel system in the Pawnee, and we now have a very fancy, very accurate digital fuel system that far exceeds the requirements of the FARs and has been signed off as airworthy and works just great, according to all the tow pilots we've talked to. But again, because we are committed to safe operations, we don't want to leave any stone unturned. And so in order to put to rest any lingering questions of confidence, our 2023 board is taking a fresh, detailed look at both tow planes, and we're already working to make sure we're set for a safe and successful year of operations. I don't want to put them on the spot, but I will say, as one of the most experienced people when it comes to being an A&P and a mechanic, Chris Clicks has already stepped up and had conversations with our tow pilots and conversations with our main A&P mechanic out in Ephrata, Scott Glassburn, to discuss the condition of our aircraft, the replacement or refurbishment of one of the cylinders on our Cessna tow plane. And I don't want to go into details right now because we're short on time, but I do want everyone to know that that is an active area of work that dozens, if not hundreds of hours were poured into last year, and that several hours have already, on day 9 of 2023, have been put into our fleet. So we will keep carrying forward with that mission, and we, especially me tonight, you hear me talking about wanting more activity, and I just want to be very, very clear that our desire for activity will never override our commitment to safe and FAR compliant operations. So that leads, of course, naturally into how you can help. First of all, I'm just going to say this very bluntly because I love my fellow board members and I don't want them to get burned out and leave me alone halfway through the year. So in the spirit of that semi-joking comment, I want to be clear that the board is 7 people. The responsibilities of operating everything we do as SGC, even just the AFREDA facility and tows, can't be done by 7 people. We need more people involved. I know not everyone can contribute with their time at all times because we all have busy lives and we're at different stages in our career and our families and whatnot. But we have 100+ members. At least 30 to 40 of you fly at AFREDA pretty regularly. You're not just coming here once a year from New York or from California for one contest and you're gone, okay? And if just a few of you help us throughout the year, the workload gets lighter for everybody, and the organization is more successful for you as well as everybody else. So with that in mind, I'm just briefly going to go over some open positions to fill. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot tonight, but I want your brains churning on this so that after this meeting, if any of you are so inclined to offer to help out, you know some positions you can volunteer for. And if any of you can think of a fellow member who you think might be an excellent fit for one of these roles, please feel free to politely approach them or quietly suggest them to one of us on the board so that we can reach out to them. We have not officially designated a towplane manager. We have Kelvin Flaval, who I don't think is on the call tonight. Sorry, Kelvin, if I missed you in the participant list, but Kelvin Flaval, I didn't mention him earlier. I apologize. He has served as our facilities manager and our insurance coordinator for the last several years running. He has done an amazing job. He basically lived part-time on the airport for us a couple of those years. He had a couple of nice gliders to fly as part of that. I say that with only a moderate amount of jealousy, but he did a great job, and we really appreciate it. We're going to miss him, but that does mean we need a replacement. For those that are not familiar, the facilities manager's job is to help coordinate things like plumbing emergencies and repairs to the facility, to help coordinate the opening and closing of the facility, and to make sure that the facility is stocked with the various consumables that we use up over the course of the year, you know, paper towels, cleaning supplies, etc. And lastly, to help coordinate with the cleaning person, Ina, that comes out and helps keep the facility clean between the times that us dirty glider pilots muck it all up. Although any of you who clean up after yourselves in the training facility, thank you for that. You set an example for the rest of us. In addition to the facilities manager, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking for a new insurance coordinator. This is a relatively straightforward and easy to fill position for any of you that are looking for something to put your name on without a ton of work behind. This is basically acting as the communications conduit between Costello as our main insurance provider, the club, our treasurer, Randy, and a little bit of coordination with the Soaring Foundation based on how we've got the assets arranged in any given year. It really is something that hopefully, barring any incidents, is a relatively light duty job that requires some coordination at the beginning part of the year and then is pretty quiet the rest of the year. We are looking for a chief tow pilot. This goes back to Mr. Clark's conversation there, or point about tow pilots and checking people out. We could really use somebody who's got preferably some CFI credentials, but definitely a lot of time in tow planes to help coordinate all the tow pilot activities to make sure that everybody is safe and current, and also maybe to help check out tow pilots if we get some new ones. Although Jim McNeil does a great job as our webmaster and helps out with scheduling, putting events and other things on the schedule on our website. We really could use a dedicated operations scheduler, or if you would prefer a more imperial title, calendar czar, to help make sure that we are coordinating with other clubs on their encampments and events, that we're coordinating what weeks we have tow pilots available for operations during non-event times. And if any of you are interested in helping make sure tows are available, this is the position for you. We're going to get to the last one in a minute, but the tow rope splicer, we could use somebody to help splice tow ropes occasionally. And then lastly, the tow line article contributors. We have a new tow line editor. I believe I just saw him here, Mr. Rackle. and we are looking to publish Towline quarterly. I'm going to say more about that in a minute, but obviously we're going to need some content there to help fill that out. And so if any of you have an idea for an article, if you've got some awesome photos or other things, I just want you to get your brains churning now about ways you can contribute to that. Because we're going over time, I'm not going to take questions on this, but any of you who are curious or have an idea of somebody to fill this position, please follow up with myself or one of the board members. We could really use your help. Again, many hands make light work. You can also help by socializing the SGC with other clubs you are involved with. I've mentioned this a lot tonight, so I'm not going to beat you over the head too much more about this, but do not underestimate the positive impact you can have mentioning AFREDA, mentioning the possibilities out of AFREDA, mentioning the DustUp and the Region 8 contest. And even if they're a person that doesn't maybe think about flying in a contest, volunteering on the ground at the contest, then they can hop in their glider and go for an awesome flight and chase down the fleet if they want to. Socializing what we do, as much as we are kind of solitary creatures in the air, socializing what we do when you're on the ground and in between times is really, really important. And we should not underestimate the power of buzz, for lack of a better word, in the soaring community about what it is we do at AFREDA and how other people can join in the fun. As I mentioned, more encampments and safaris. Also, those of you that are here tonight, you should know, and again, please take this back to your various clubs. We welcome participation from everyone at our general meetings. They are open to the public and not restricted to club membership only. We don't want anyone anywhere involved in soaring in the world to feel like they don't belong with us, they can't participate in our general meetings here. We learn from each other. The more we stick together, the better we all are. And then we are open to the idea, again, in the concept of coordinating with other clubs, to have a designated rep or two from other clubs to participate in our board meetings so they gain greater insight into our decision making and what we're thinking about and how we can make sure that our council activities mesh well with their club activities. So bug in the brain for those of you that are involved with other clubs. And then think to yourself, if you're involved in other clubs, how can SGC help support your club, your soaring site? Think about that. Let us know. We want to know. We want to be a regional resource. Having said all that, final thing for the night as we run a little over time. Thank you for your patience. Towline, as I mentioned, is coming back. It's going to be published quarterly. The board will be contributing some content, but we really need content from our members. Robert, are you still online? We've had a few people drop.
He doesn't seem to be on the list any longer.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of people drop at the hour, which I totally understand. We'll have Robert's contact information for those of you that would like to contribute and make sure that you all have an opportunity to do that. Thank you in advance for those of you that you do. And then the last thing for you all, we have a Google group that some of you may or may not know about, SGC News. Watch for an email from me in the near future about how to join it if you're not already part of it. We want to leverage that communications platform more this year to, again, get more buzz going, make us all feel like we are able to communicate better and more effectively when we're not in person and as a group, right? We want to throw topics out there for everybody to talk about, everybody to contribute to. We've got lots of different brains here with lots of different soaring skills and backgrounds and opinions. The more we can have an active melting pot, the better. And with that, I'll just say we can't wait to see you in AFREDA. And before I close this out officially, do any of my fellow board members have anything else they want to contribute tonight for everybody?
Good job, Noel.
Crickets.
Thanks, Jim. And yep, I think it's officially bedtime for a lot of us. Thank you to those of you that stuck around to the end. I really appreciate it. If you have any last questions, I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes and answer. Otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful night, and we hope to see you back online again or in person very soon. Thanks a bunch, everybody. Look forward to an awesome year with you.
Good
Thanks,
work.
thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you.
Noel, Ron here.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job, Noel.
Thanks, everybody. Ron, go ahead.
So if the airport at Ephrata's got construction going on, and for the first months of the season, just move everything up to Methow, and we'll fly out of there for that month. Why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. Just because I know all the work we already have in front of us, and moving to Methow would be a little bit more work. And poor Brian and Jonathan, who are on the call, I see would have an even longer drive from Hood River. But it is an awesome place to fly. We'll keep it in mind for sure.
All right.
What are you talking about them for? I live further away than they do.
Yeah, but you've got a motor on your thing. Just cruise on up.
Yeah. Hey. So it's Brad. We got to remember the people in the valley hate it when we call it Methow. It's
Methow.
I was surprised you waited this long to correct him, Brad.
Okay, we could probably find a hangar up there to stick stuff into if we needed to do that for a while.
Right.
All right, cool.
Good idea, Ron.
Brian, go ahead.
No, can you hear me? Oh, I don't really want to put anything into the main group here, but we've been very inspired to well, I never know whether I can speak knowledgeably since I'm just the guy that sits back here at the computer. I'm not a pilot yet. But we're toying with I'd really like to see our youth get this set up to a point where it's not only for adults. We're beginning to build a youth contingent at Hood River, and of course one of the big challenges for youth is it's expensive to do this stuff if you're a kid. Having said that, and Mike, you may be able to attest to this, but Paul Wollery, he says it's way easier to do fundraisers for kids that are soaring than for adults. Yeah, and so that's not my game, right? I'm just here to kind of help these kids, grease the skids for them on the way through this. But maybe this is a very long-term vision, but I would like to see actually a junior contest eventually up there, because the SSA is very supportive. They'll do things like reimburse all the juniors for their entry fees. They will reimburse up to 10 juniors a year for a camp grant, up to $400 a piece for basic camp. Jonathan was the only one that applied last year. And I mean, nobody thinks of doing this stuff because nobody's going anywhere or doing anything, really. I mean, that's an overstatement, but I'm only, in some ways, I'm only here because Jonathan's here. That's how it started anyway, right?
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah. Well, he's doing well. But I would, we would like to see somehow, and this may be mostly our own efforts, but I could envision the day when, especially if you could get more than one glider up there, so we wouldn't have to haul our own two-place gliders up there. I could see a day when we could have a cross-country camp for juniors up there that would be fully, I'm just an idea, that would be fully, listed on the SSA website. As you said, and I can't attest to this, but you did, it might be a great place for juniors that don't want to fly, that may not want to fly in some more, let's say, dangerous or harder places. You don't have to go very far to have you do the proving grounds. That's incredible. Get your silver badge, and you don't have to go terribly far out of Ephrata to do that. And if you play your cards right, it's all downhill to Ephrata, or Lenore Lake, right, Jonathan?
So anyway, Brian,
yes,
Brian, you came in a little bit later. We had discussed some of that before you got, Jonathan was online, but you hadn't gotten online yet.
Okay.
The foundation is very anxious and are going to be trying to get more than one glider, hopefully available. So in line with what you're suggesting, also the whole idea of looking for donors, and specifically donors that will help get some youth activity, I think, as you have said. And for other people on the call still who may not know, most of the airlines in the United States are anxious to make sure that a new population of pilots is going to be available when they need them. And so you can approach Horizon, or you can approach Alaska, or if any of you are working in any of those places, Boeing, and just simply say, we have an organization that's reaching out to youth, is trying to create new pilots that'll be available to fly these commercial aircraft. How about giving us $10,000? We're a tax deductible organization. We're a training organization. So the foundation is already moving down that line. In fact, I'm looking for a fundraiser, Brian.
Well, no. Look, I work 16 hours a day a lot of times. I'm doing this, and it's probably coming straight out of my heart valves here or something. So, but I will bring what energy I can. But when it comes to SGC, I'm going to have to stay in very unofficial roles. I actually like, as you know, Noel. I like doing land outreach trees, and I like coming up and painting picnic tables. But as soon as I get roving, and I'm running the Hood River Youth Organization. By the way, Noel, you remember Fox Gossett? Did his check right on his 16th birthday 2 days ago down at Estrella and passed. So he took his mom for her first ride on his 16th birthday, just like Jonathan did for me. So we're going to try to get him up there. So I would like to find some way to get more of these youth. And I think Noel, I think I included you in my little essay about the commercial license stuff. I have a plan to actually present that to the SSA once I refine it. It's not the only market we want, but it's the one I'm involved with, and we've already got it figured out that we're going to save kids something like $8,000. I mean, that's just hard savings, and besides that, I have a lot of fun and meet a bunch of old guys at the same time that know stuff about life and about gliders. So I get kind of excited about it. But if it weren't for Freda, we really wouldn't have a place to do this. I mean, cross country. You can't do cross country out of Hood River with kids that easily or effectively. So we're hoping to bring a larger contingent this year, and we'll certainly do our best. We may have to have a fundraiser specifically to get them to a Freda. I don't know. Fundraising is not my forte. I work all day and all night, and then I go out to the airport and blow a bunch of energy like I have any. But go out and use it to help some kids progress. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on it.
I appreciate it, Brian. It's good stuff, and it's an example of the kinds of things I think we do need to be thinking about in order to advance the state of play in some of these areas. And I do want to thank you very much for the Soaring Foundation's new byline or subtitle, which should be the SGC Soaring Foundation. Won't somebody think of the children?
Yeah, Noel and Brian, just thinking about the youth stuff. This is Brad. Couple things. One, we could maybe approach like Alaska Horizon. Maybe they buy us a 2-place glider and put their company colors and logo on it, and have a good storyline go along with it. And I think it's important to remember also that the U.S. Air Force starts many of their pilots in gliders, DG-1000s and such. A friend of mine whose son started out in gliders at the Air Force Academy, he's flying the F-22s or whatever. I mean, I thought because they stuck him in gliders and made him teach in gliders at Colorado Springs, that meant he was going to be flying something other than a cool airplane. Well, he's flying the hottest stuff the Air Force has. So I was educated by the fact that the Air Force doesn't use the gliders for the guys that are at the bottom. They use them for the guys that are destined to go to the top. And I think that's an important story, along with hitting up the airlines and showing them a glider. Maybe somebody can Photoshop, the Horizon or Delta colors. See, Delta and Alaska, they're constantly kind of competing one against the other. And we might just be surprised and say, we need $100,000 for a nice 2-place glider. What can we do?
These are awesome ideas, and I appreciate it, everybody, for sure. Just to add a little context onto what you said there, Brad, I've had the good fortune of actually helping to run a couple of events out of Nephi, including a couple of nationals, and the Air Force Academy brings their sort of more accomplished student pilots in the gliders up to participate. They help out run ropes, and then they all go fly. And it's really impressive seeing those young men and women doing what they're doing, because you see them on the ground and they look awfully young. It's not because I'm getting old, it's because they are awfully young, right? And super respectful, and you think, I don't know, are they really? But they really are pretty good pilots, and they've got them dialed in pretty darn well. And it's awesome to see. And it's a very good point that if the Air Force, Academy looks at gliding as a way to train the future of our warfighters, shouldn't it be good enough for the airlines and other organizations as well?
Yeah, I think it's a serious endeavor, not just a casual sport for a young person who's interested in aviation. At the Northwest Aviation Trade Show, as I think you know, we have we're going to do a 1-hour seminar at 10:30 on Saturday and 11:30 on Sunday. So those are really good prime times, both on soaring and how to get into it if you're already a power pilot, and how to get into it if you're starting de novo. And the third prong is why it's a good way to get a commercial, to get into commercial aviation, save a lot of money along the way, because you can log a lot of flight time in gliders that cost a lot less than power planes. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of attendance we get. I think we might draw a pretty good, pretty good audience. We'll see.
That's awesome, and thank you for bringing it up, Brad. I apologize that I did not give you a chance to mention that when we had more people on the call as one of the sort of events this year. But I think your presentations and your work with the Northwest Aviation Trade Show, right, or Trade Conference, I forget what the official name is,
Yeah.
Is going to be awesome. Can you remind those of us that are still on the call and for the recording what date that is?
It is February 25th, that's Saturday, and February 26th, which is Sunday.
Okay.
And if you've never been, there's several thousand pilots that show up. It's a big deal.
Very cool.
I think I might try to talk Fox into coming up and hanging out with you guys. It'd be great to have some of the kids there, the flying kids. Now,
Sure.
We're going to be at the SSA convention because Jonathan's he's getting his award. Yeah, he's getting his award that weekend. So, but we were planning on coming up and hanging out with you so we could kind of brag about the youth thing. About hey, your 14-year-old could do this.
Yeah, we're going to try to do a much better job of capturing contacts, email addresses, and phone numbers of every person that's interested, so we can start assembling, a real email list, kind of like we have for MEDAW. I think I've got 80 people now that the MEDAW thing goes out to each year, and really try to get that going. And PSSA, which is a club in Enumclaw, you probably know that, Brian, but we really need to build our membership, and we need to find some more tow pilots too, and instructors severely with finding instructors. But that's the instructor problem is a tough one because it takes time. I mean, we're doing okay financially. Actually, the club's doing reasonably well, but to stay in the saddle, we got to push forward.
So just to touch on what I don't want to drag this on too long down this subject, but do you feel there's a market where in your area for kids that are already dedicated to a life in aviation when they're, let's say, 14, 15 years old, but they've never thought of soaring as part of that? Because that's an easy sell. I was talking, no, that's the easy sell with the commercial license, all the way through to getting them set up as CFIG so they can kind of earn a living along the way for part of it, Is there a market for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we did a little bit of work with Auburn Academy, and they are very interested. They have an aviation program. It's like a high school level, and they've let us use their airfield for our winch. But the problem is we don't have instructors, and I think when we're dealing with kids, if it's something that isn't tightly organized, then kids get over the gee whiz factor and then they kind of drift off. And it really needs to be a complete dimensional program. At PSSA, we don't have that at all.
But yeah, that's where I see AFREDA is, in a sense, is the pinnacle of that, right? They come and learn at an organization like where you are, And then at some point you entice them, like Mark Stanfield enticed Jonathan out to the DustUp. He said, if you take your written test, you can come to the DustUp with me once you pass your FAA test. So he studied his tail off and did the test and went out to the DustUp and landed out 45 miles from the airport on the first day. You know, I mean, it was, I want to see Fox come out and do something like that. Well, maybe not the land out, but you know,
I was going to say,
maybe he'll land at an airport because of Jonathan's experience. He can go land at Mansfield. But you know, I don't know, whatever we can do to help with this, you know, that's, I would be glad, by the way, just because I think Jonathan's position here is unique and that he might be useful to use as a little, you know, a little outreach tool. Seriously, feel free to let us know if you want to do some school outreach or something and have a kid come with you. I'll send Jonathan up there and he can go hang out in the schools with you, you know, and tell him his experience. You know, I think it might, if we can be useful in any way, we'll do that.
I don't know if Jonathan's still on, but Jonathan, if you're online, I don't think of you as a tool. I didn't say that. He said,
oh, no. Okay, no. What I'm saying is that our experience, I've made it very clear, and Jonathan's on board with this, that our experience isn't about us. It's about how something can be shared with others. And I've told you this before, Noel. There's never. It's never too soon to start giving back. And we're there. And I'm going to try to get with Fox on this. You know, he's the next one coming up here and try to convince him to get involved and reaching out to the next. You know, then you got even these things. The next generation is like 3 years behind you in this stuff. So, but anyway, if you have ideas about that stuff, we'd be glad to bring it. You know, maybe get some of the Hood River youth involved where we can, and you know, if it might be useful.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate how much that you and Jonathan and Candida have already given back and continue to give back, and you guys are really a model for that. So I will take all that energy and enthusiasm, and we'll keep it rolling as long as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns, anything they want to make sure that I or the board know before we kind of drift off for the night here?
Hey, Noel, on the rates and fees, you may have seen my comment on that. Just yeah, trying to keep the dues at a low amount, and I think certainly having the fees for the things that people use, you know, be reasonable. I think they've been too low, especially on the tow plane. But you know, we bumped them up last year, which was probably done too late because we don't have any money enough money in the reserve. But you know, one other option on the fees is we could have like a nominal fee to be like, and I'm thinking of Meadow, because we had a number of people who showed up from outside our region. And if it's let's say $75 a year fee to join SGC plus all the other fees for Meadow, it might not be quite as something that they want to do. So maybe we can have like an event fee where they're an event member for SGC, and that'd be, you know, $30-40 or something like that, where the regular people who live in the region and want to be involved in multiple events, you know, would pay a regular annual fee. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent thought. Thank you, Brad. And for whatever it's worth, just as a single individual voice, not speaking with my official board hat on, I'm very much of a similar opinion. I think that if we can, your idea of sort of an event membership is maybe the right way to go. I was always traditionally thinking of this as like the baseline entry fee to be a member, which we kind of need to charge to make sure people are covered under insurance and whatever. Because we tend to have a reasonable number of our members come for like one event or 1 week a year, and because it looks like the most likely path forward with us is to continue and push that trend even more of being sort of more of an event-based organization where we try to hold a bunch of events each year, but it may not gather the same audience week after week after week. Like you said, we don't want to have such a high bar to entry that we scare people away. We want to make it attractive to come out at least once, high enough that we don't lose money on things, but low enough that people come out at least once, and then hopefully we put on a good event and they get good value out of it and they come out more, right?
Yeah,
Whether
I mean,
it's more the same year or they're just a one or twice a year, every year person.
Yeah, I mean, if we doubled the annual membership cost, it's not going to bring in that much more money. But if we keep as many member numbers as we can, that's probably even more profitable and certainly furthers the organization.
Yeah, and this is the exact kind of trade-offs and like you just referenced there, like
Yeah.
raising these rates, how much more money does that bring in versus the negative consequences versus changing the way we charge for things over here or changing the rates over here. This is the kind of juggling and analysis that this little subcommittee is doing right now so that we can try to come up with something that ensures we keep our broad reach and broad membership, but also make sure that we're sustainable over time. So thank you for your input. And certainly if you or other folks who are listening here have additional ideas, feedback, thoughts, red lines in terms of what amount of money is too much or too little, please keep it all coming up to me and the rest of the board. We're interested to hear all of it.
Thanks, Noel. Good night, everybody.